Welcome to the Overstock Academy weekly podcast, where we help online sellers go from amateur sellers to elite online sellers in 8 weeks or less. We focus on finding on-sold name brand store Overstock products and reselling them online in places such as eBay, Amazon, Shopify, and even your own website. Overstock products are the same highly profitable name brand products that you know and trust, which basically means that if you do it right, they almost sell themselves. And the do it right part is what this podcast is all about. Good day, Overstock Nation. Thank you for joining me today and taking the time to listen in. Today's topic is about something that is inevitable when you have an online resale business. The dreaded message from either your buyer or your marketplace itself stating a return has been requested. Now, returns are a dreaded part of every retail story, but e-commerce stores seem to have it much worse than their brick-and-mortar counterparts. Research shows that at least 30% of all e-commerce orders end up being returned, as against just 8.89% of brick-and-mortar sales. Now, a number of factors contribute to the significantly higher rate of returns for e-commerce stores, and these include the big one, products not matching their online description. It also includes things like wrong items being shipped out, items being damaged during transit, problems with the fit and/or the product quality. It could be gift items that are being returned. It could also be that the customer just changed his or her mind and no longer wants the product. It also could be because of fraudulent returns. Now, whenever I would get a return request, I would always panic and look for someone or something to blame for why the buyer wants to return my item. And it's very easy to beat yourself up over this. I know at times I did. I feel like I gave them the best deal as far as price goes. My item was solid and they want to return it? Why on earth would they do that? Did I list it wrong? Did I forget to add an accessory into the package? Needless to say, after blaming myself and everyone, including the buyer, I realized that it wasn't always because I did something wrong or listed the item without the right details. Sometimes items get damaged in transit, and sometimes the buyer just simply changes their mind once they receive the item, also known as buyer's remorse. It's just something that simply happens and we have no control over it. So I stopped looking for reasons and things and people to blame for why returns were happening in my business and created a system that would minimize them from happening to begin with. Here's the thing, Overstock Nation. Without a good, effective system, selling Overstock products online can be a nightmare to deal with. But returns don't have to be a nightmare. In fact, when done right, they can totally be minimized. Let's first talk about return policies, and then we'll jump into how to minimize them. So let's ask ourselves, why do we offer returns? So returns are a way of showing your buyer that you stand behind your product 100%. It gives the buyer peace of mind knowing that if they receive their item and it's not exactly what they expected, they will be able to get their money back. And as sellers, it's easy to take returns personally or as a sign that you're not good enough to be an online seller. However, you have to remember something here. As soon as the buyer hits the buy button, they are taking a risk, right? Even if your item is only selling for less than $10, you have to understand that for some people, that's a lot of money to lose. Now, while hovering over the buy button, imagine your buyer standing on the bank of a fast river. While they're standing there, they're feeling anxious because they can hear the waterfall that is a few yards downstream. Now they're thinking, what if I step into this river, lose my footing, and get swept downstream into that waterfall? Our job as online sellers is to ease that anxiety by building a bridge across that river. One of the building blocks for that bridge is a fair return policy. Now, offering a return policy is a must in their online resale business. Return policies can range from 7 to 14 days up to 30 days and even longer during the holiday season. Now, there are benefits to offering longer return policies. One, marketplaces will rank your items higher within their search engines when you offer a 30-plus day return policy. And this is because it not only means that you are a strong seller that cares about your buyer satisfaction, but it also shows confidence in your products. And the second thing is the potential buyer will feel more confident with their purchase. Now, I would say the only time a return policy is not required is if your item is something that is being customized and would not be able to be resold if it was returned. Again, this comes down to you deciding if you are losing sales because you don't offer a return. An alternative to this could be something along these lines. I was once searching for a customized cake topper for my daughter's birthday cake, and I looked all over online and I landed on Etsy. Now, the item I was purchasing was an icing sheet, and it had customized words on it. Now, the seller didn't offer any type of refund should the item arrive damaged, but she would offer a store credit for her store if something went wrong when I received it. Now, that seemed beyond reasonable to me, and it minimized my risk. So I went forward and purchased, and everything worked out and ended up arriving perfectly. So what type of policy should you have? Well, of course, this will be your decision based on the items that you choose to sell. On most marketplaces, you will be required to offer some type of return policy, usually with a minimum of 7 days. I do believe eBay is a minimum of 14 days. There is, however, a very important point to keep in mind, though. Almost all online sales are completed using a credit card or PayPal, right? Now, the truth is, a buyer has up to 90 days with their credit cards to file a dispute and request a refund. This is also called a chargeback. Now, for all of this to make sense, I'll explain how the chargeback system originated. In the early 1970s, bank credit cards had not yet gained widespread acceptance in the US. This was partially because of consumer fear. People worried that the card could be lost or stolen and then used for unauthorized transactions, with the original owner getting stuck with the bill. Now, there were also complaints of unscrupulous merchants taking advantage of the consumer. For example, using the credit card number to add fraudulent charges. Now, chargebacks can appear very similar to traditional refunds, yet there is one very relevant difference. Rather than contacting the business for a refund, the consumer is asking the bank to forcibly take money from the business's account. Now, after the chargeback is initiated, an investigation usually follows, and if the bank feels the cardholder's request is valid, funds are removed from the merchant's account and returned to the consumer. Now, in the past, the consumer was in no way obligated to return whatever was purchased, and this led to some shady people really taking advantage of this and abusing the dispute service. However, these days, credit and debit card issuers have really cracked down on this abuse. They require a lot more verification from the buyer, plus in most cases, they require you to return the item and provide proof. As a consumer protection, the chargeback process is naturally skewed towards the cardholder's safety in multiple ways. One, the chargebacks are designed to keep customers feeling secure. The risk of a forced reversal of funds keeps merchants focused on providing exceptional customer service, right? Also, chargebacks serve as a deterrent to merchants who might be tempted to sell subpar products or services. Cardholders will claim the products or services were not as described, setting the stage for a chargeback situation. The threat of chargebacks helps merchants stay transparent. Customers can't be expected to pay for something that was never delivered, charges that shouldn't have been made in the first place, or refunds that never got issued. And last, chargebacks help protect cardholders from the effects of criminal fraud. In a world where even players like Equifax suffer data breaches, many cardholders aren't even surprised when they learn unauthorized transactions have been made on their account. The ability to file chargebacks on fraudulent credit card transactions helps innocent victims recoup their money. So here's what you need to remember when creating your return policy. Whatever return period you offer, your policy will be rendered ineffective by the chargeback protection should the buyer have a solid reason for returning the item beyond your stated period. In a minute, we're going to get into how to minimize customer complaints, negative feedback, and returns. But before we dive in, I realize that most of you are listening while doing other things. Maybe you're at the gym, at work, or driving and running errands. Some of the stuff I'm about to describe is best explained on video where you can see it in action. If you go to overstockacademypodcast.com/116, then click on the link at the bottom of that page. That will take you to the free 7-day trial of our most popular course. In that trial, I demonstrate the entire process that I'm about to explain. We don't even ask for your credit card. It is a true free trial. But for now, listen to today's episode, then cut to the chase and go to the free trial and see the process in action. All right, here we go. Step 1, receiving. Now, minimizing returns starts as soon as you receive the item from the vendor. I know this sounds a bit extreme, but here's the thing. This is a fact that we have tested over years of selling overstock products online. If you have 3 brand new Bluetooth speakers, let's say the first one has a pristine retail box just like it would have in the store. The second has a retail box that has a rip on one side. And the third is completely missing the box. Remember now, they are all brand new. Which of the 3 do you think will fetch you the most when reselling online? If you said the first one, you are absolutely right. But here's the kicker. You paid the same amount for all 3 of those Bluetooth speakers. If you really want to prove to yourself how valuable the retail box is, try going on eBay and searching the words box only, then stare in amazement at how much some empty boxes are selling for. Here's another example. How many times do you go to the store, open a package to check out the contents inside, you're satisfied, so you put it back on the shelf, and you grab an unopened one? Now, I guarantee you someone listening to this just said, I don't do that. Well, my friend, if you don't, you are a rare breed because most people do it, right? Even though they'll get home and they'll open the freaking package anyway, they still go back and take an unopened one. You know why? The package is still brand spanking new. Now, next, I'd like you to imagine yourself receiving a wholesale lot. Then you go to open it with a box cutter and you rip through the retail boxes. You have just lowered the selling price of your product. This is why I said the whole process starts when you receive the item. Don't throw them around, don't mishandle them, don't deface them in any way. In my business, we had a policy. Don't make the package any worse than it was when it came in. And this policy paid off for us in the end. Again, the free trial at overstockacademypodcast.com/116 will show you exactly how to not only ensure your retail boxes are not damaged, but how to make them look even better than they did when they arrived. Step 2 is inspection. This is also known as the processing steps. This is where you will test and inspect your items and all of its components. Before you list your items, you need to know their exact condition. This is the stage where you will figure this out. Now, why is this important to know? Because like I said in a previous episode, in the overstock industry, not all your items will get to you in pristine condition, and this includes brand new items. Plus, especially for open box items, you want to make sure they operate as expected and also look as expected before you can list them for sale. If they are anything other than what is expected, they will be returned. It is your job to make sure the buyer knows what to expect, and we do this using images and product descriptions. We'll go deeper into this in just a minute. But spending a couple minutes to inspect the item will ensure your descriptions and listings are accurate. In our course at Overstock Academy, we provide you with the downloadable PDF copy of the actual inspection sheet that I used in my business. Now, you can tweak this to the type of products that you'll be selling, but I use this for every single item that came in, especially if the package wasn't brand new and sealed. Now, it not only makes this process faster, it made all my listings highly accurate. It definitely reduced my return and complaint rate. Now, after you test and inspect your items, you will then use the information that you notate on your inspection sheet to create your product description. And that brings us to step 3, which is optimize your product description. Your product description is going to describe the item in its entirety. This will include everything about the item that you want the buyer to know. When the buyer receives the item, there should not be any unpleasant surprises. A lot of sellers try to go about this in a lazy way and just copy and paste the manufacturer's descriptions of the item, but you want to go the extra step and add in the little details that would cause the buyer to be disappointed or return the item if they are not aware of them before purchasing. Your item may have a minor dent or scratch, or your digital camera may be missing the lens cap, or your clothing item may have a broken zipper. You must set the buyer's expectation here in the item description. Think about it like this. Anything And I mean anything at all that you would want your buyer to know about this item so there are no surprises, notate it in the description. You cannot have too much info, so don't worry about overdoing it. People actually read the product descriptions. This is another building block for that bridge we talked about. Your description will then lead us to your pictures. Step 4 is use actual pictures. Pictures are once again another important building block for that bridge that we're trying to build, the bridge that gives your potential buyer confidence in you. If you have something that you feel you cannot explain or describe properly, go ahead and add a picture of it within your listing. The truth is, in general, people prefer pictures of the actual product that they are going to get rather than a manufacturer's representation. So wherever possible, take your own pictures. This also avoids copyright violation notices, and in a future episode, I will go into detail about what those are and how to avoid them. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'll say this again. Go to overstockacademypodcast.com/116, sign up for the free 7-day trial, then go to the section titled How to Take Pictures Like a Pro. There you can watch me demonstrate this on camera. I'll guide you on how to utilize the photo section in your listing on the major marketplaces. I show you how to achieve professional looking pictures using tools that you probably already have in hand right now. Remember, when selling online, your pictures will sell your items, period. So be sure they are precise, free of background distractions, they're clear, not blurry or pixelated. In other words, follow the instructions in that video and you'll be good to go. Step 5 is packaging for shipping. Another way you are going to minimize returns on damaged items is the way you package before you dispatch it to your buyer. Remember, we covered shipping and packaging in episode 113, so if you haven't listened to that episode, be sure to go back and do so. But in short, packaging your items with the correct box, filler, or poly mailer bag will ensure that it arrives undamaged. Needless to say, if it does arrive damaged, the buyer is likely to ask for a refund. I have some other tips I've put together for you. Let's say all else has failed and now the buyer really has to return the item. One thing you're going to want to do is respond to the buyer's complaint fast, okay? This will make dealing with returns not such a headache. Keep the buyer informed about the return process. Let them know what will happen when you receive the returned item and when you will be processing their payment for a refund. This is going to avoid the buyer sending in multiple messages asking where their refund is. This is very annoying to the buyers. You want to update them first to avoid putting any doubt in their mind that they may not receive their refund. Again, if a buyer knows that you did everything you could to help, they trust you and their anxiety levels drop. The second thing is return shipping fees. The general rule is if the buyer is not at fault for the return, you will want to consider offering a return label or at least refunding their shipping cost. If you have your shipping account set up, you will receive a discount on that return label. So rather than having the buyer bring the item into the post office to return it, email them a return label. They can then simply print the label out, which will include your discount, and send the item back to you. This will also avoid you having to refund the buyer for full postage should they go to the post office themselves. There are some exceptions to this rule, and I'll go over those in just a minute. The third thing is have open communication with your buyer. You always want to respond to the return request promptly to avoid it escalating. When someone goes to return an item, they always think it's going to be a hassle. Their adrenaline levels spike and they brace for a fight, right? I once needed to return an item that I purchased because it arrived and it was the wrong color. When I messaged the seller about the issue, they wanted me to send in pictures and a screenshot of the item purchased from my monitor. She explained to me that all computer screens display color differently. Well, yeah, I know this to be true, but I didn't feel like as a paying customer, I should have to go through this hassle. I simply want to return the item and get a refund. After all, the return policy states 30-day return, no questions asked. Now, because I'm an online seller too, I get it. I cut them some slack and I did the steps the seller asked, even though I didn't really have to, and I eventually got my refund. But do you think I'll ever be buying from that seller again? Absolutely not. You have to be reasonable with your buyers. They do have the option to escalate the return and bring the marketplace into it, in which case you will be forced to do the refund anyway. So be open and save yourself the hassle and just refund the buyer promptly. Right, so earlier I mentioned there were exceptions to this rule. It's not all doom and gloom, okay? There are some situations where you don't have to eat the cost of returns and you don't have to pay for the item if 1, the buyer changed their mind, also known as buyer's remorse, or 2, the buyer damaged the item after using it. For example, I once sold a high-end 7-speaker home theater system, and about 6 to 7 days after delivery, the buyer sends me a message saying he needs to return it because it was defective. So I pulled out the product processing sheet and I realized that I tested this myself. There's no way that I could have missed that. My sheet said that everything was working. So I send them a message asking them how it's behaving. Is it turning on? Have you used the troubleshooting steps in the manual? Things like that. So the buyer responds, and I'm not even kidding. This is exactly what he said. He said, "It was fine on Friday. I used it for a house party I was having. Then on Sunday, it stopped working." So that's pretty much it, folks. My responsibility and my liability with that item was over. I didn't accept the return, and the marketplace backed me up on this one. You see, once the item is in the hands of the buyer and they start using it, you are off the hook as long as you can verify that they actually did use it, and that can be the tricky part. So as you well know, there are people who buy stuff just to use it and return it, and there are others who genuinely accidentally damage the item. Here's another example for you. A lady in England bought a toaster from me a few years back. Don't even ask me why. She must have really wanted this particular toaster because she was buying it from overseas. So she plugs it in directly into an outlet and it goes poof. Remember, their outlets in most other countries are 240 volt. Well, here in the US, they are 110 volt. Now, in that case, even though I could have declined to help, I did. I had paid $12 for the toaster, sold it for $50. She paid shipping plus tax in England. So I offered her 50% refund, which was $25, and she accepted. I didn't lose money and everyone was happy. And guess what? She actually ended up coming back and being a repeat buyer and purchasing other items from me as well. Number 3, with FedEx and UPS, you don't have to pay for the return if the item is damaged during shipping. These companies offer minimal insurance per shipment, so if you file a damage claim, they will pick up and return the damaged item back to you for free, plus compensate you the value of the item. Okay, so now once you receive the item back, you may be wondering what happens next. Now first, that's going to be determined by your business policies. In the Ultimate Store Overstock course, we guide you through setting up your business policies. For example, my return policy read, "Please note, we have 14-day return policy which you can return the item for a full refund as long as the item meets these conditions. 1, the item must be returned in the condition it was when you received it. 2, the packaging, manuals, and all accessories should be returned in the condition that you received it. Please do not deface the original retail box in any way, including no shipping labels or writing on the box. Carefully package and return the item to the address listed below. Upon receiving the item, we will inspect it and issue a refund within 24 hours. Then I would include my return address." So that sounded fair, and it set the expectation for the buyer, right? Now, when you receive the item, of course you will know why the item was returned to begin with. If it was because it was the wrong size or maybe the wrong color, then you would re-inspect the item and then relist it. If the item was returned because it was damaged and when you get the item back, it is in fact damaged and no longer usable, you will have to chalk it up as a loss. Now, if the item was returned because of a missing accessory or a blemish on the item, you will want to re-inspect the item, verify that your item description is accurate, your photos show any blemishes, scratches, or dents with the item, and then relist it for sale. And then you also want to reevaluate your items. If you are the type of seller that sells a specific niche with different variations, you will want to pay close attention if you are getting multiple returns on the same item. Start back at the beginning and make sure your source for the product is good. Inspect it, properly when it arrives, and then list it accurately with photos and a detailed description. And last, eliminate this item if your inventory has a high return rate. All right, so that's going to wrap up today's episode. Please don't forget to check out the free trial to the Ultimate Store Overstock course. If you go to overstockacademypodcast.com/116, then click on the link at the bottom of the page. That's going to take you to the free 7-day trial of our most popular course. And like I said before, we don't even ask for your credit card to access the trial. It is a true free trial, and it's totally worth checking out. We are here to take you from selling slow-moving, low-demand products to in-demand, name-brand products. We show you techniques that, if done right, your products will basically sell themselves. That is how we take you from an amateur online seller to an elite online seller in just 8 weeks or less.